Hi, this is Jim Shirley, and in this video I'd like to talk with you about what makes a good book cover. So what I've done here, what I thought I would do is just come to Amazon.com where we could kind of look through a few of the different covers that they have on display. Because this is, like Apple's bookstore, a place where, millions of people go to buy books, and so we can learn a lot here about how to display, what makes a good cover for an electronic display, like on a website, on one of these major platforms where the majority of our books will probably be sold as self-published authors. So here we are on Amazon, and I've just gone to the books page. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so we don't have that scrolling window up above there. And we can start to take a look at some of the books and their covers and talk about what makes them good and that. So let's just kind of take a look at this top row here. And what I want to talk about first is this idea of contrast. So contrast is a good thing as it relates to books, especially on their covers. And so, over here we've got this book, Children's Books for All Ages. There's a little contrast here. And, I think the one that probably illustrates it the best, though, is this one right in the middle. And so, if we talk more about contrast and what is it, using this example, it is colors, which is kind of this really light background with a red and a black font, for the title, and that really stands out. Like, you've got a pretty small image here to use to catch people's attention, and so like this is ideal, right? I mean, it's fortunately for them, their placement is great right now in that they're kind of the center book in this little display. You can also see this contrast over here in this cover for the book Divergent. But the things that stand out here is that, you've only got a very simple color scheme here. Obviously there's all sorts of different shades, and so if you really, wanted to count the number of colors used in these book covers, these two, Divergent and Caught, there's hundreds, I'm sure, but, if you just sort of abstract that out a ways, it's a very simple color scheme. It's dark, with a light, and, a pretty readable title here. This is kind of a light with a little bit of dark towards the middle and bottom, and, very stark title. So it's really easy to read. This one here too, The Perfect Score. It's always a trick trying to use fancier fonts on covers, and generally speaking, it's something that, is probably not recommended, but, they've really pulled it off well on this cover, I think. But look how simple it is. It really stands out. And, that's kind of opposed to, and I just want to say, as we're kind of looking at these, my intention isn't to downplay anybody's cover or, offend anyone. But, I'm just kind of trying to point out some things here that are, I think, important as it relates to book covers. And they're particularly important for, self-published authors who are, maybe don't have a big name or a big following of people. You're really left, with having to, as a self-published author, do everything you can to catch people's attention and get them onto your book sales page and ultimately to buy your book. And so, once you're super successful and you're a bestseller and you're selling, millions of dollars worth of books a year, even hundreds of thousands, you can go and kind of pull off covers like this where, there's really no, obviously this is a amalgamation of different books, but there's really nothing here other than kind of a catchy visual to draw your attention in. there is no title, and and that makes sense because it's a compilation of several books. But I just want to point out, this happens really often with people who don't have a compilation of books. They create a cover that has a visual, but unless somebody's willing to sort of read your title and subtitle and blurb of your book, your cover does nothing to draw their attention in or to hook them. So, until you're sort of at that level where, you can afford to have people, pass by your book, you want to avoid that. So what I thought I would do is go into a couple of subsections here so we can look at this in a little more depth. Now, here are some books in the self-help genre, and I thought we would kind of look more, so we've talked about contrast. Here's another couple of books that have some great contrasts that really make them stand out. Yellow with red. There's been a phase of book covers where, this kind of dark background with red font, stood out. So there's one like that. You could start to see if you actually took the time to sit down and just, go through your category of books and a few others and just write down the colors that people use, you'll probably find that, there's about 5 colors that are almost always on book covers. And, there's a reason for that. So, should you deviate from that? Probably not. You want to, this is one of those areas where you want to kind of, take a page out of this other authors' books, who've had some great success and, who are able to pay these, incredible designers to do their books for them. You can piggyback off of that by noticing, hey, red fonts, seem to be pretty popular, red in general, and how it's used. Orange comes up quite a bit. Obviously, black is a big one, and so is white. Those two are kind of given. But you're pretty judicious in your use of blues. Some people use them as the backgrounds, but you don't see it used. Oh, here's one with a blue font, but you don't see a blue font used very often. But if you are going to use it, make sure it stands out. Here's another one where we don't have, we've got a nice looking cover here, but there isn't enough contrast for me to be able to read this. Pardon me. So, I can see here that, if I look closely, it's the 4 Agreements. I don't know that book. I haven't read it, but just as I'm passing over these, and I think about, like, where's my eyeballs landing when I look at this page, it's really always falling on this habit book, The Power of Habit. So, that's just something to consider. Is it the image that catches my eye? Nah, not really. Is it the image over here that catches my eye? A little bit more, yeah. So when you're sort of starting out and you're on a budget, with covers too, it's important to say, hey, it's like the color scheme that I've got can really do a lot to drawing people's eyes to my book. So if you're not able to afford a professional photo or to go out and get a really nice stock photo for your book, which, by the way, isn't a huge expense anyway. You can still pull off a great cover just with a couple of basic colors and, a fairly large title on your book cover. So let's see. Now, as we kind of scroll through these, I touched on it just a second ago, but you can see that there's also images on these various covers, on some of them, and some of them have chosen not to go into it, not to create a cover with an image. And it's up to you whether you want to use one or not. Does it make the difference between a great cover and people buying your book or not? Possibly. So we're in a self-help niche right now, looking at books, and if you're a person who's looking to build their brand because you do some consulting or speaking or that kind of thing, maybe it makes sense to have your picture on the book, because it's kind of helping build your brand. But as you look across the other covers here, there's plenty of them that don't have any image at all, or if they do, it's very kind of hard to notice, at least from the thumbnail image here. So obviously the Alchemist here, I mean, they've used an image kind of background, but then we've got these emotional intelligence and the disciplines book over here that no image at all really, and same here, or maybe a little image at the bottom. So you can kind of see that the image is somewhat secondary in these books, and the title is kind of the big thing. That's not always the case. I want to come back to this because there's a couple of more covers I want to talk about on this page, but if we go back here to the books, I want to show you. So if we go into one of the cookbook sections here, cookbooks or books about food, is a place where an image really may be the thing that pulls off your cover. So you've got the funny food book here, and this image tells you a lot about what this book's content's going to be about. Donuts, obviously. Now let's see if I can find the book I'd seen earlier today. It's not on the front here anymore, but basically, it was a cover that you couldn't really read the font, or what the book title was, but it had two pictures of pies on the cover, and so you really could kind of pull off that kind of cover in a cookbook section, because the picture really kind of gives away exactly what's the book's going to be about. So that's a place where the image can be quite useful. All right, so let's go ahead and as we're scrolling through here, you can again see this kind of theme of basic covers are a little more eye-catching than covers that are really complicated and messy, right? So we're continuing on with that theme. So let's go back to books here. Let's go back to the self-help books. Okay, and then I wanted to scroll down here a little ways, because there's another thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit with you, which is the use of badges. So, if you just look in the screen right now, you can see that, out of the, whatever it is, 12 or 15 books that we've got on display here, there's a couple of them that have what I would call a badge on the cover. And, this is something else to consider when you're getting your cover done, is do you want to use a badge? Do you have something to say in a badge? And so when I say badge, the thing I'm talking about is this little circle. It could be a square, usually it's a circle, and it's placed somewhere on the cover. A lot of people like to do gold. The reason for this is, a lot of over the years there have been some various book awards, and you actually used to have sort of a what almost looked like a sticker kind of on the book for indicating that this book was an award winner. And so that's kind of an eye-catching thing on these covers, isn't it? As you look across these, it sort of is a thing that stands out. So that's a thing to consider having on your cover, especially if you've got something to say in the badge. So a lot of people, what they say is from the best-selling author of this other book, or XYZ award winner. I've used badges though, and I've had a bestseller in one category, but when I used the badge, I didn't say that. I actually just wrote sort of a little hook inside the badge, that just talked about what was inside the book. So it doesn't have to be an award or anything like that. So that's kind of what those look like, in terms of the use of badges, something to consider for your covers. In terms of using images, let's get back to that, because we kind of got into the concept of using people, or using your author image, or using, in this case, like a person, on your image. That's certainly something that can be useful. The other kind of images is something that, helps kind of tell the story about your book, like the pies. If you've written a fiction book or something like that, an image can help tell the story of your book as well, or nonfiction. The Ocean Walk, that's kind of a typical, book for certain, conveying certain messages. So, that can be quite helpful. So as you look around, I think if you're considering having an image on your book cover, what I would do is take a look at a lot of different books and kind of figure out, the pattern of what makes a good image on a book cover. The thing that stands out to me is that, on a lot of these, if you're familiar with photography at all, you kind of know there's this rule of thirds, which basically says, whether you're looking at a picture horizontally or vertically, the picture is kind of, and the content of the picture is kind of split up into thirds. And so, you rarely have the focal point of the picture kind of exactly in the middle, or too far to the top or too far to the bottom. So, you kind of want to think about that in your image for your cover. And so you look at these covers and you've got plenty of room up here for the font for your title. You've got, something that, this image kind of goes through the whole book cover, but yet, there's just really the focus of it is right down here in this bottom third. So, that's the kind of thing you want to look at, when you're choosing an image is, what's your title? Where are you going to put the title? And what's that important third of the image that you're going to use? Where are you going to place that? Is it going to be kind of the top third of the cover, the bottom third of the cover? And what's that going to be? So, when you're choosing the image, you really are focusing on images that have, something interesting that you're wanting in one of the thirds of the picture. So, because seldomly can you use a image that covers the whole cover, because then you get into a situation like this where it's really hard to read, what your title is. It makes it really busy. So, and not to pick on that cover. That's, just my own sort of professional opinion on these. So, anyway, what I'll do is go ahead and wrap that up now. I hope that you found that useful, and I wish you the best of luck with your book cover. Thanks for joining me.